one of the things that we hear constantly when we're in the public is that the citizens tell us that they feel that they're in an occupied, like it's an occupied force, that the Sheriff's Department's an occupying force. With the color of their uniforms, to the overuse of SWAT. And so when we looked at that issue, we know there's been several studies by the ACLU, and what was the other one? The Koch brothers, CODA? I think it's CODA. But what's interesting to me is that here you have the Koch brothers, Tea Party people, right? And you have the ACLU, liberal, and they do the SCAF study on the overuse of SWAT. And what's amazing to me is they come up with the same conclusions, the exact same conclusion. So what that tells me is that it's not about ideology, it's about the truth. And we see what's happening just locally, or not locally, within the United States right now in Missouri, right? And the escalation of force by SWAT. And so we have on our website, you know, a campaign ad and a little video clip, and we reference resources to see that. Well, there's a lawsuit that's pending currently involving a SWAT action that happened here in Cripple Creek a few years ago, where they activated a SWAT action because they were looking for guns as it relates to a burglary. However, the person that was involved that they were looking at was not a suspect, meaning there was nothing leading the law enforcement to believe that he was a suspect. And so they went there under the guise of doing a welfare check, or what we call in law enforcement as a knock and talk. And as a result of that, they went there and Cripple Creek, in conjunction with Cripple Creek Police Department, the Sheriff's Department activated their SWAT team. They go there and they knock on the door because they want to talk about these guns. Well, the resident of the trailer, slammed the door in their face, told them, get out of here. And the response to that was they activated their SWAT unit. And so they forced entry without probable cause, without an arrest warrant, without search warrant. They roughed up the two people that were in the trailer. And then after they didn't find any weapons, there was a van parked next to the trailer. And a gentleman by the name of Paul Bowman, and Mr. Bowman is here today. And they thought the next brilliant thing was the guns must be in the van. Well, Mr. Bowman was sleeping in the van. They forced entry into the van, extracted Mr. Bowman, and as a result of that extraction, Mr. Bowman had severe medical issues, dealing with his pacemaker and other issues. Ultimately, it had to be life flight. And so there is litigation. Mr. Bowman can't talk about the settlement aspects of it. But you may have read it online because we have that case online as well as all these other cases. And this is my opinion. Mr. Bowman hasn't said anything to me about that, but after reviewing the case, it's going to cost us taxpayers millions of dollars. Millions, right, for what they did to Mr. Bowman and to Mr. Graham. So, I'm sorry?
Rightfully so.
Well, no, rightfully so, yeah. I mean, and it's,
wrong, they need compensation.
yeah, somebody is wrong, and obviously Mr. Bowman still has some health issues as it relates to that incident. So you're absolutely right, unfortunately, but that should not have happened, right? That should not have happened. So for instance, they use SWAT inappropriately, right? The leadership of the Sheriff's Department. And what they do is if they have a felony warrant, it could be for burglary, it could be for narcotics, they use their SWAT team to execute the felony warrant. And that is insane. List that my former agency we used to use. So just so that you understand what we evaluate in the use of SWAT, okay, is if you check one or more of these issues, then SWAT needs to at least look at it, right? And here are the issues. Is the location fortified? Is there sally ports, internal fortification, multiple gates, steel doors, etc.? Okay? Are firearms believed to be on the premise and the suspects have made threats to use them? So not just that there's guns there, that these suspects that we're looking at, have they threatened to use them? Are there automatic weapons, explosives, or military ordnance on the premises? Suspects wanted for felonious assault on police officers involving weapons. Based upon specific articulable facts, is there a likelihood of a violent and armed confrontation? So if any of one of those things exist, then we need to do intelligence work on the whole picture, and still that may not dictate that we would use SWAT, right? It's a starting point. And then we look at some other issues that may not be as plain. The sophisticated counter surveillance. You know, do they have intrusion devices and surveillance and camera equipment if you're going to execute the search warrant? That's a consideration. Geographical layout and target. Is property too large or complicated to execute effect an arrest warrant? Are the suspects three-strike candidates involving violence? So we know this guy's going down for the third time and he's a violent offender. You know, that would make a difference. But that wouldn't make the only difference, and this is what I'm trying to illustrate. Does the suspect have prior convictions for violence against police officers? Security screens on the doors and windows. Have specific threats of violence been made and booby traps believed to be on the premise? So that's the entire criteria. So what would happen is my staff, when they work up a warrant for somebody or a search warrant, they would go and answer all these questions. And then after they answer these questions, I would sit down with them and interview regarding all this intelligent work. And then based on that, then I would call the SWAT commander and say, hey guys, this is what we have. What do you guys think? And then they would make the decision on whether or not they're going to execute the SWAT action. And then, but before they execute it, they do their own intelligence work. And they go out and they do their own intelligence work. They don't rely on me or my men. They do their own and verify it. And then execute it. So what we do know that happened in Mr. Bowman's case is they got a call from, the sheriff's department got a call from Cripple Creek Police Department telling them they think there are weapons here. They want their assistance because, you know, those weapons could be used against them. And then we're going to go do a knock and talk. Well, the first thing that should have happened is when they're on the phone, they should, excuse me, what do you got? Do you have an arrest warrant? No. Do you have probable cause? No. Do you have a search warrant? No. We're not coming. That should have been the end of the conversation instead of what occurred. So we know that there's an overuse of SWAT in our society. You see it daily. When you look at the statistical data, it's alarming. When I first came into law enforcement in 1979, when we used SWAT, we didn't like to use it, to be quite frank, because we knew that it would escalate the issue, right? So when you come up with a lot of force, what's going to happen? And so we didn't like using them unless it was a last resort. But now agencies, and specifically Teller County, is using it as a first resort. Wow. And so we need to change that. It's important.